actually. We're just about ready to come up here, and I know everyone can hear us, so they can have the banter. Hello, Olga Loudman. There you are. Nice to see you tonight on the Trump Attorney Tracker.
Hi,
How's it
hi,
going?
hi. Good. As we were bantering,
Yeah.
you were checking in. I haven't smoked a cigarette over a month now. My last one was in October, and I did it.
Well done. I'm really proud of you, and I'm really happy for you because that's a really big life change. That's must make you feel so much better, and just also just a distraction and a time waster because smoking is such a time waster.
A money waster.
That's
How about
true.
that? In New York, it's like $18 per pack.
Yeah, in Toronto too, they're really expensive. There's somebody in my life who smokes, and I'm encouraging him to follow your example here. So,
Hey, yes, yes, yes. Tell them it'll be the best thing ever. And trust me, I've been smoking my whole life since high school.
it'll be the best thing ever. You hear that? You heard it here first. It's the Trump Attorney Tracker. We have Ellie Leonard coming up in about 15 minutes. I'm going to cross your knowledge bases on all things Epstein and Russia. But she's going to come up a little later on, and I've got some big news that I'm going to be sharing about the E equals MC squared. The Epstein agency was called MC2,
Yes,
and
I remember that
The E was
agency.
Epstein. The E was Epstein. So it's really Epstein's modeling agency, which was not really a modeling agency after all. It was more like
No.
a intelligence agency and a compromat factory all in one. But that's coming up a little later on. I did want to talk to you about, did you see that press conference today where the Pentagon spokesperson, Kingsley Wilson, was speaking about Hegseth's, order to kill everybody in that boat in the Caribbean, and she basically said, "Well, it was all the president's directive that did this." Let's take a listen to that clip. We can just quickly listen to it because if you had missed it, you can hear it now.
Can you talk about the autonomy that's given to the commanders who are carrying out these operations, like Admiral Bradley, to make decisions? Like in this case, I'm assuming the first strike took out the boat and any actions that followed. Can you talk about the autonomy they're given?
Absolutely. So the secretary has been very clear in every statement that we've released about these strikes that they are presidentially directed. And the chain of command functions as it should. And we make sure that commanders on the ground their positions are taken into account, and they are able to tell us and make decisions if they see things that need to be flagged. But at the end of the day, the secretary and the president are the ones directing these strikes. And any follow-on strikes like those which were directed by Admiral Bradley, the secretary 100% agrees with.
It's quite striking that the Pentagon is making a statement saying the president and the secretary of war, or whatever he wants to call him these days, is the one who ordered these strikes, especially because there's such a lot of controversy around it. What's your take on hearing that?
I mean, this basically is it reminds me, you know that Spider-Man meme? He did it, and it's
Yes,
like three
yes, yes.
Spider-Mans
Yeah, he did it. He did it.
pointing to each other.
Yeah,
Yes,
it's
this
true.
is exactly what is happening. They're all trying to put the, liability on this. Look, Hegseth committed a war crime.
Yeah,
Trump commits war crimes every day by ordering these
true.
strikes, and I mean, we'll see how much of, these strikes, what kind of legal reasoning and justification they have. Frankly, I think that their justification is very thin, and that
Very.
explains the resignations that we've seen over the past since September. But here, I mean, it's very interesting because look how this happened over the past 72 hours.
Mhm.
It went from Hegseth saying this is fake news and never happened, and that the Washington Post is lying, with Trump saying that this never happened and, this is all fake news. To Republicans, for some bizarre reason, which I'm still trying to wrap my head around, taking it seriously. And over the weekend, as they were preparing to return back to Washington, saying that they're going to have really look into it. And I mean, this is like Senator Wicker. He is a very
Yeah, no, it's
serious
really serious
look.
stuff. And Wicker's involved. It's not just anybody. He's a really serious guy.
And that it's a house also that
Mhm.
their counterparts are doing the same. You had several of them come out and say if the Washington Post reporting is accurate, that there are potentially war crimes. This came from both Democrats and Republicans. It finally reached the White House that, you know what, this is not going away. It's one of those, like when Epstein happened at the first time. You remember how they tried to brush it away and
Yeah.
they thought, oh, it's just going to, like everything else, go through a news cycle and then go away. It didn't. This is only going to get worse and worse. The problem is that Hegseth
is incompetent. He's
well,
actually
I
a
mean,
risk to everybody he comes in contact with. He happens to be in control of this world military power that, could destroy us all. Sorry, I digress a little bit, but you know what I'm saying.
2,000,000%.
Yeah.
The problem is, though, that, from all accounts, this looks like a war crime.
Yeah.
From the video scene, the acknowledgement that they did know that, these non-enemy combatants were hanging off on the side of the boat and they decided to go ahead and strike them and kill them. I mean, this is not the rules of engagement anywhere.
Yeah.
But Trump will pardon him. And that's where my concern is. On the other hand, the more serious issue, besides, that the U.S. now is engaged in war crimes and extrajudicial killings, and that basically we're, moving towards the parallel with Russia. Besides that, the fact that if you remember, and I had written about this two Substacks I wrote. One, that the Netherlands stopped sharing intelligence or started sharing selectively because of some of these actions and Trump's actions and his attack on the media and universities and whatever. And the British specifically stopped sharing intelligence over this because they said they feared what we were doing in the Caribbean, just blowing boats out of the water, was illegal. And they didn't want anything to do, and they didn't want to have any kind of, be compromised as a country of aiding and abetting war crimes, extrajudicial killings, and whatnot. So this is one of the, things along the fact that now we have war crimes, that are more likely than not to be committed, that you have foreign governments who just are not going to share intelligence or want to collaborate with us. And then here, look, we're going to get to the bottom of this because now you have, again, it reminded me of Epstein because you had, again, both parties release the tapes. So no one's going to allow, Hegseth today tried to throw it on this admiral. Trump tried to throw it on the
It's not going to work.
admiral.
It's not going to work. I mean, basically, there's this other clip that I found earlier on today from Fox News where, he actually Hegseth admits to being there, to seeing everything, to knowing what was going on. I'm going to play that, and then I got to get your thoughts about Witkoff and Jared after we do that. But let's listen to this.
So the president is sending a message to other cartels, right?
A very clear one. I can tell you that was definitely not artificial intelligence. I watched it live. We knew exactly who was in that boat. We knew exactly what they were doing, and we knew exactly who they represented. And that was Tren de Aragua, a narco-terrorist organization designated by the United States, trying to poison our country with illicit drugs.
I mean, the things you should not say on Fox News while committing a war crime, but, there he was doing it.
It is a Fox News host.
You go to them with the story.
Playing as the defense secretary. No, look, this whole thing is going to come to bite him because, again, even if Trump does pardon him, which I'm sure everyone who's committed crimes on his behalf will get a blanket pardon, we still have the international community. And if they were serious, they can easily ban him from traveling and, send a very good message that if he appears we still have the ICC. We have other measures in the world that can make sure that he is held accountable for it. So hopefully he will be.
Hopefully will be. On the other big news today, of course, is Witkoff and Kushner in front of Vladimir Putin and his team there, at least, getting a tour of Moscow with Jared Kushner. It's so ridiculous, really, when you think about it. The president's is a son-in-law being feted like that by our adversary, by Vladimir Putin of all people. It's just stunning when you just think about how far we have come in this short amount of time. What's your take on what's going on there? This looks like an enrichment exercise and really a non-starter in terms of a peace deal, obviously.
Well, for starters, let's revisit who Kushner is. I mean, he's the one who famously was in Moscow several times, including, I believe, 2015 or 2014 or 15, when he had dinner with Abramovich, which is like one of the closest oligarchs to Putin. With Vexelberg, he had dinner. I mean, so Kushner has a very, 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 very long line to the Russians, including them, financing his dealings, including that ugly building in Manhattan that
the Wall Street building. Was it Wall Street?
Not Wall Street. It's on Fifth Avenue, across the street from St. Patrick's Cathedral. He owned that building.
That's interesting. I didn't know they owned that. That's the palace, isn't it? The palace?
I think it has that Atlas thing.
So is that the one? I wonder if that's Jared Kushner financed that?
Yeah, the palace Trump owned in the 80s. That's actually where he held his
and then
parties
Khashoggi was
underage. With underage girls, he held his coke parties. He owned that in like the late 80s, 90s. The palace.
And so the one that you say that that Jared financed. Sorry, I'm digressing a little bit here, but I'm fascinated by it. Is it
the palace on 5th and 57th across the street? I'm trying to think. I used to work there.
It's really interesting because. That's not Jeffrey Epstein's old offices, right? The old Verdam building that looks like a mansion.
No, but
there's the one that looks like a mansion.
Office.
Sorry?
Lauder, the one who also goes back to the 80s with the Soviets. He had an office there. So,
that's really interesting information. I'm going to go back and dig into that. That's really fascinating. Of course, Olga Laufman knows everything, so that's why
when it comes to these people, yes. And Kushner, let's not forget, is the same one who had the genius idea in 2016 to go to the Russian ambassador Kislyak, that fat piece of crap, who was in the Oval Office. And normally I wouldn't fat shame anyone, but this man, I mean, is like
he's really gross. I mean, there's no nice. He's just not a good-looking guy.
Disgusting. He's horrible, disgusting. He was actually in charge of running Russia's attack on the U.S. soil on behalf of that. Kushner went to him and asked in 2016 if there's any way they can use the Russian embassy for a back channel so they don't get caught by U.S. security services.
Yeah, I remember that. That was exactly right. That they wanted a back channel, and how ridiculous that sounded at the time to all of us who were sitting there trying to figure out how on earth they would get to a back channel. But of course, there it was. It was our proof of around. There's a lot of other proof around Trump, Russia. But back to sorry, go ahead.
And he met with Gorkov at the time, who was a high-level FSB intelligence agent.
And the Sberbank guy, right, as well. Wasn't he Gorkov from Sberbank?
Yeah. He's intelligence. So anyway, that's Kushner. So basically, that's who was.
So it's not his first time in Russia, is what you're saying.
No.
He's had his moments there. I'm fascinated by everything you have to say. Do you think they're going to come back with anything significant in terms of, at least they're trying for business deals? They're even threatening. I guess they're going to try to say that Trump will recognize all these territories in Ukraine. Is that really going to happen?
Trump absolutely can recognize it. That definitely could happen, and we'll see what Republicans do, because I know a few Republicans, including Fitzpatrick, threw a petition on the floor, a discharge petition, and basically doing everything to, hit back at Russia.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I mean, Trump can do everything, but Kushner is there with Dmitriev. I mean, this whole thing specifically was through his, I think it's the Saudi investment fund.
Right.
That's Dmitriev, and where Dmitriev wants to invest money.
So it's basically a business operation more than it is
this is a business deal at the expense of trying to force Ukraine to surrender as Russia's committing
These
genocide.
poor Ukrainians who are having to deal with all of this craziness from the American presidency. It's unbelievable. Let's get into the Trump tyranny tracker for today, which is day 317. I'm sorry, I just have to blow my nose. Sorry. It happens. I don't know what's going on today. Number 317 is the day. Is that right? Wow, we've come a long way with this Trump administration, almost a year. DHS Secretary Kristi Noem admitted she authorized deportation flights to El Salvador after a federal judge ordered them stopped. DOJ filings show she directed transfers to Bukele's mega prison and claimed the actions were lawful while under contempt inquiry. What is? And this is unbelievable. You've got Hegseth doing war crimes. You've got Kristi Noem basically bragging about defying a court order. What do you make of this?
This is the problem, that this country has turned into such a banana republic that I'm telling you, I follow autocratic regimes. I deal with autocratic regimes. I've never seen anything like
It's
it.
a joke, really. It's become so
these
bad.
This is how confident and emboldened these sociopaths feel, that, I mean, for her to brag, yes, I did. And now the court, actually, the judge just started, working on the case to see whether to hold her in contempt. And here you have, how you call it, this happening, her actually admitting, yes, I did. And literally, I'm not kidding, like Friday, the judge said, we're reopening that, and we're going to see if we're going to hold officials in contempt for not obeying my order, both oral and written. And here, Monday morning or whatever, Sunday, or she's like, yes, I did do it.
Do they realize that they're going to land up in prison? I mean, it just makes you wonder. I mean, yes, he might pardon them, but yes, they might also land up in prison. He might land up in prison.
I really hope this happens, and this is the whole point that this country really needs to learn, is accountability.
Mm-hmm.
And these people, one way or another, have to be held accountable, because we saw what happened when they don't. They come back tenfold,
Mm-hmm.
and more, insane and organized and insane, and have a full-blown strategy. But I'm telling you, they're doing it on the account. He probably told them, do everything I tell you, and don't worry, I will pardon you. And you see, I mean, he's Hegseth and Trump today carried on in the Oval Office about, the drugs entering this country, and they pardon the kingpin who was moving the drugs into this country. And by the way, that's not justification either, because I'm very shocked that no one's pushing back on this. If people choose to take drugs, no one's putting a gun to their head. This is a market. If you want to take drugs, if you want to drink. So the fact, like, these people are terrorists because they're killing Americans, well, then maybe we should provide better social services to Americans, so they don't need to feel like they need to go on drugs. But no one is forcing them to go on drugs.
And no one's forcing anyone to go to war over drugs either. I mean, there's just no reason for that. It's just ridiculous.
And I mean, you can't, on one hand, not provide social services and try to, prevent people and teenagers and adults from becoming alcoholics and going on drugs. On the other hand, blowing up a few boats in the ocean, which is really not even where the drugs is coming from.
They're not coming from there. They're not coming from Venezuela, not to the United States.
Nope.
It's ridiculous. But, I also noticed Kristi Noem today congratulating the president on stopping all the hurricanes this year during that.
Oh.
She was like, congratulations for stopping every hurricane. And he said, thank you to that. I mean, it's lunacy in there. Speaking of Hegseth, the Pentagon also barred AP, Reuters, CNN, and the Washington Post from his briefings this week. Access was now only given to a handpicked press corps of pro-Trump outlets and extremist influencers. Laura Loomer has the Washington Post office inside the Pentagon, was broadcasting from there today. Mainstream reporters were forced out after refusing to sign policies limiting coverage to Hegseth-approved information. I keep calling. I struggle to find adjectives these days to describe what's going on, but it is nuts.
It really is. And again, this is a copy of what happens in Russia, except in Russia, the propagandists are trained. Like these aren't, like ex-influencers who became journalists.
Right.
They're trained. They understand what to say, how to say. They follow very strict orders. They receive the briefings in the morning of
That's
what
interesting.
needs to be published. Yeah, no, everything there is like theater. I mean,
Right.
it's behind the scenes. When you go watch a Broadway show, you watch it and enjoy it. You don't realize, how much effort goes into making sure every single moment,
Right.
every word, every movement is correct. This is what Russia is, everything from
The
like Putin
entire
yesterday.
ecosystem is echo chamber is controlled by the state. That's so interesting that you're saying that, because
Since the Soviet days,
yeah,
you think Putin coming out yesterday pretending to be military? That was the
mm,
biggest joke ever.
yeah,
The dude is sitting in a military uniform. Um,
at
everything,
least they had the right size
everything.
for him.
Yeah, every hug, every kiss,
Mm.
every protest, how you call it, every single thing is orchestrated. Not one thing is real there. So.
Interesting. Let's get into number 3 here. The White House unveiled a public media bias tracker, an offender hall of shame, targeting the Post, CBS, CNN, The Times, Politico, and The Journal. Many of these outlets just had their Pentagon badges revoked, as we mentioned. Now they're under this new sort of, what is this, an enemies list for journalists? I don't know what they're doing there at the White House.
Yeah, this is first of all, the fact that we're paying, again, all the American people are paying for this White House website. We're paying for the White House website, and anyone who has visited it, unfortunately, I did a few months ago, they turned it into like propaganda hour. And literally, if you look at it, there's no difference between that or Breitbart or any of the others like extremist websites. And the fact that now they're doing this is with legitimate news,
Just
because
basically
I can.
blacklisting people, or what is it? What are they trying to say? Are they just
Yeah,
shaming
that's what
people,
they're
naming and
doing.
shaming?
Yep, that's exactly what it is. So basically, today you played that clip a little bit ago. Those are all propagandists sitting
Mm.
there, untrained propagandists and influencers on X who are sitting there. And then you have the Washington Post, which proved itself that they don't need to be sitting in there, and Laura Loomer can have their office, because Laura Loomer is never going to break a story that the United States committed war crimes, whereas the Washington Post, even
Her big
miles and miles away from there, did. So
her big scoop
they'll
today
be
was that
on.
Dan Driscoll was organizing a coup against Pete Hegseth. I was like, oh my gosh, that's your big scoop. It's propaganda,
Yeah,
of course.
there is some weird thing happening, because Driscoll apparently went to school with JD Vance, and
Oh, really?
and there's some kind of a weird fight between the Vance crowd and the other
What do
crowd,
you make
and
of Driscoll, by the way? It's like
another one. This
another
is a
operative.
loyalist. I mean, to put
Yeah.
him into to Kiev, I would have. I'm telling you, really, I wish Zelensky had the balls to just basically ban all American travel and say, you know what, for this, not
Mm.
for anything prior, but like post January, like Driscoll should have no right to come in. He's an enemy coming into our territory. Like, get out,
Yeah.
because all he's doing is collecting information to pass back to Vance, to pass back to Russia. So,
2 more stories to try to fit into today's show. House
very quick.
Democrats launched an inquiry into the FBI director Kash Patel's use of the Bureau's Gulfstream jet for personal trips. He's been flying to watch his girlfriend wrestle and visiting a Texas hunting ranch owned by a GOP donor. Flight logs and social media posts revealed the pattern. Corruption is, it's hard to even describe what is going on. It's with Kash Patel. The agents who filed that report on him, this investigation into him, 80% of them were pro-Republicans, and even they are saying he's running a clown show over there. And, the things that they're describing him are just, it's embarrassing.
It is embarrassing, because the FBI was one of the premier law enforcement. And when the FBI put together an investigation, like you knew, it was a solid investigation, not biased. When the Department of Justice, unveiled an indictment, you saw there's no bias to it. Everything is strictly by evidence. You see the evidence, and literally to the timestamps, locations, people, everything. And now, I mean, you have Patel, who again is another podcaster pretending to be. This is like The Apprentice or some ridiculous reality show. You have Hegseth, a Fox News host,
Yeah.
pretending to be Secretary of Defense. You have a podcaster pretending, two podcasters, Bongino and Patel, pretending to be FBI. And this is what happens. You put a podcaster, he uses our tax-funded resources to run around with his music star girlfriend, provide her security, using
a SWAT team. And then he's on the plane and he arrives at the Charlie Kirk thing, and he doesn't have a jacket, the FBI jacket. So he stops the FBI agents from investigating Charlie Kirk's just happening assassination. So he can get a right-sized, because he's quite small figured, a right-sized FBI jacket to wear. So he holds, it's embarrassing beyond belief but he's only interested in the stagecraft. There's nothing else he seems to care about at all.
No, he wants clips. I guarantee you he's putting all these clips together when he gets pushed out and restarts a podcast. And that's what you're going to see. He's going to make some kind of a, look, I was an FBI. I pretended to be FBI. The whole thing is so embarrassing. The only reason I'm laughing is because it is so maddening.
We have to laugh.
But I have my hope is these people, all of them from Trump on down, are so incompetent. I mean, they can't, rob a bank properly. So it'll catch up to them. I have faith that it'll catch up to them. It'll be up to the American people, all of us, to put as much pressure, as possible when we have a chance to make sure they're held accountable this time and that they actually see jail. Because if this doesn't happen, we're going to have a whole smarter crew who is more organized and who is more, not unhinged. Who can really do even more damage. I just
want to quickly get into this last story and then bring in Ellie Leonard because she's been waiting so patiently for us. And it's an accidental leak revealed Flock. You love this app, whose AI surveillance cameras blanket thousands of U.S. communities and feed data to police and ICE, has been outsourcing video review to gig workers in the Philippines. Internal dashboards show contractors annotating footage of vehicles, people, clothing, and even screaming audio. I'm not sure what that means. American surveillance in the hands of foreign gig workers. Is this really happening? This is not the kind of stuff that should be contracted out.
No, and just as a reminder, Flock is being used by ICE, by Border Patrol, and by God knows who else. It's part of the surveillance state that they're building. And now, come to find out that not only are they illegally using this private company to basically skirt the laws in place not to surveil Americans, so they're going through a third-party company, but now we are going through third-party countries. So God knows, as they're building the surveillance state, and this is incorporated in ICE and Border Patrol. Philippines, it could be Eastern European, because that's a place where they usually hire any kind of data people and things like that. So just so people know, anything that ICE has, apparently the information is being pulled from third-party countries who are not vetted, who are not screened, and this makes this even more outrageous of this surveillance state, because this is it's not only Americans surveilling
It's Filipino contractors. Imagine that. Hey, let's bring in Ellie Leonard. I wanted to spend a little minute with both of you. You might have to move your frame a little bit there, Olga, because I think you're not centered right now. So there you go. You guys met each other. You know each other. Ellie does fantastic work on looking at researching on the Epstein files that have been out there. And of course, Olga, everybody knows Olga Lautman. Huh?
We were commiserating this week because both of us had a fake account created for us.
Oh. And did you?
It's like a milestone,
It's a milestone for sure.
I know. The only reason I found out is because someone received a message from it and sent me a message, and they're like, "Listen, there's a fake version of you that's sending a message." And then someone else commented, which is what I sent you.
Someone sent one to me in a DM. They said, "There's another you out there, but they have 6 followers or something like that." So I was like,
"Yeah, this is." I'm like, "Come on, now we're back to Twitter nonsense."
Yeah.
Well, that's what happens, right? That's what happens in this world of fame, and as you guys are becoming so well known. Well, Olga's been around the Substack world for a little bit, but you're fairly new, Ellie, and you're doing some amazing work,
I'm a
and
rookie.
so
Thank you.
really impressive stuff. I wanted, while I have you both here, just to quickly talk about Jeffrey Epstein and the pipeline he had of Russian models. Let's call them models for now, because that's one of the things that I was writing in The Greatest Heist. I'm really interested because, Olga, you've done a lot of this research into some of these people who are, trained within Russian intelligence circles. I mean, they were not just, models. They were trained within the Russian intelligence circles. They found their way into Jeffrey Epstein's circle through modeling agencies, basically, and through modeling contracts, and then was sent out to do all sorts of things. In one case, Silicon Valley. In the other case, and both of them worked for Epstein for a period of time. So I'm really fascinated. Can you talk a little bit more about those two particular women, and also, how did this all work?
Yes. So it's very interesting. With one of them, Lana, with the Dave, I actually went virtual hopping through cemeteries in Russia to find her grandfather, and only to find out that he was buried in like an equivalent of Arlington Cemetery and was a high-level GRU official, Russia's military intelligence, which was back during Soviet days. Her father seems to be GRU too, because I found actually a contract that he signed, like a tenant contract that he signed, and he listed his job for it as GRU.
So you know for sure these two were Russian intelligence. Well, came from Russian intelligence family, is what you know for sure, or
Lana, 2,000,000% came from a Russian intelligence family. She was being trained for foreign ministry. And I mean, it's a very absurd path, because she was trained for foreign ministry, and then she decided to drop out. I remember the picture she sent to Maxim, Russia, which was the modeling agency. And it's a picture of her basically in lingerie, mostly naked. She ends up getting picked, and they end up then dropping out of this. So again, I don't know what the American equivalent would be, maybe Georgetown University or whatever. But if you're going to train for the State Department, imagine you're in your third year and you're like, oh, fuck this. Let me just,
I'm going to become a model. I'm going to become a model because what are the chances you're going to succeed at that, especially in the United States? And they did. They managed to get their visas, their O visas, Melania.
And and her father, by the way, was also worked with the Communist Party, Melania's, and was an informant, just like Ivana's father was an informant for the STB, which was Czechoslovakian Security Services, which was a satellite of KGB. Anyway, for another story. But Lana did that, goes to Europe, and ends up in New York, and she ends up in Epstein's circle. Interestingly, there's a picture of her floating around with Epstein, Ehud Barak, and who else? I can't remember. But her mission wasn't actually she wasn't, here for modeling or anything. Her mission was artificial intelligence, and because since Soviet days, I mean, and since the 50s, Russia's security services, whether it's KGB, whether it's FSB, whoever it is, their main focus has always been on stealing American technology and also nuclear technology, regular technology. So she ended up with Epstein, basically having him introduce her to people in MIT, Harvard. They even set up some kind of a charity together, and he donated money on her behalf. So her mission, from the looks of it and from what her training looks like, was specifically to get information on artificial intelligence, because this is what Russia's been after since, forever, and just in general, any kind of technology, anything related to computers and whatnot.
And Putin's got such an interest as well in AI. I mean, he's expressed that was a big deal for him.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
it's such an interesting
Russia,
pipeline.
And then with that, she opened this thing called WeChat. And WeChat was a women's empowerment nonsense. That was like a
Mm-hmm.
fake website of bullshit. And then I tracked her partner in Moscow, who happened to go to the same school as her. And it's this woman, Victoria Drakova. And Victoria had a sister, Masha. So Victoria and Lana are business partners. They're the WeChat in Moscow or WeChat in New York. It's a fake website. It's not a real company. It's a front.
Wow.
Um,
That's
and
they created the front in order to do what? To pass information back and forth and without any. We just don't know.
I think probably as a legend, because
Yeah.
usually when SVR sends you to United States or to Europe, they usually provide you with a legend. Like if you look at Anna Chapman, she had one legend when she went to Britain, and she was SVR, and she was operating under, I don't even remember. And then she went back. They did a little facelift and kind of made her look actually very Melania-ish,
Yeah.
which is
She
weird.
had a show
Sent
makeup
her
of done.
to, yeah, no, yeah, because they, SVR does that. They give you, I'm sure CIA does it too. They give you a little facelift, whatever, to send you on your next assignment. She came to New York, and here she went into the business real estate, and she had a legend of being this real estate heiress and whatnot. And then ended up being part of an SVR ring. Was she in illegal? Maybe. I don't remember. But anyway, and
Sounds
then
so interesting that this back, so fascinating to get your perspective on how were able to track them down. And Ellie, you've been doing some work on Ehud Barak as well. You've been doing work on the emails between Ehud Barak and Jeffrey Epstein, and also these other emails between Michael Wolff, and also Steve Bannon.
Yeah.
Some of it get into quite creepy territory. Give us a highlight of one of the things you've been
Okay.
talking about, and then we'll let
So-
Olga go because she's going to make dinner.
So I was trying to write down all the people who are in the emails. I have them kind of categorized in little folders, and I was like, no, I'm just gonna write down the most important ones and the most significant. And I don't know if you can see that. It's a
Wow.
long list. Okay. And then I have unknowns, or I have snippets from people who are sort of unknown, but they're very significant statements. But you have like Bill Gates, you have Jean-Luc Brunel, you have Leon Black, you have Michael Wolff, you have, the Dubins, you have Ghislaine Maxwell, you have all these emails, and I'm on section 11 out of 12 of
Wow.
that last drop of files in the images. And I am trying my damnedest to get through them very quickly before they drop more files. But my assumption is that there will be more emails in the next set of files that come out. So I don't think my work is done. I'm going to be starting to drop these on Substack tonight in documents of different speakers. But they're an ongoing project. There's so much significant information about things that probably people didn't ever assume that would get out, especially if the emails are earlier. The earlier the emails seem to be, the more significant they seem to be, because they hadn't realized what technology could do. But there's the Larry Summers stuff is just it's like two young 12-year-old girls talking to each other. I don't know how else to describe it. Like it doesn't sound like a Harvard president speaking to a finance guy. It sounds like two little kids talking to each other about what they want and how they're going to get it. And do you think she likes me? And blah, 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 just
These guys are like incels, basically. They're such geeky guys who can't lay anybody, or can't get anybody, and so they just are. The way they act with each other is just so childish, and it was probably quite easy prey for Jeffrey Epstein to go after these guys, because they had access to women that they could never in a million years have gotten.
Right. And then there's people that you just like. You think of the Kathy Rumler emails, and she was Obama's counsel, and these all occurred after she was done working for Obama. But her relationship with Epstein is very weird. It's very flirtatious. It's very, I had posted an email the other day, and somebody was saying, like, it's just so weird that she tells him, hold on, I'm going to get up and go pee. And she's like, it's like, why would you, as a former White House official talking to a guy, why would you say that in email? And they're just very.
After he got convicted, after he got
these are all there's very
after.
few emails from before his first conviction. There's a couple, but all these people are well aware of what he was convicted of. They all think that his sentence was far too harsh. that he was held to account for something for other people, and you know, there's just such, like, the discussions of Me Too and Time's Up, and he thinks that rich white men are targeted and they're victims. They're the real victims in America, and like
Well, he's doing the targeting, and that's something else.
And there people are in there. I have to say, I'm pretty impressed about the people who didn't end up being in these emails thus far. It's kind of a relief to not see certain people in there, but there are people in there who, and I will post them later on, but they say things that I don't think they ever wanted to get out, and they're people who had credibility, and I think this very much hurts their credibility.
Let me say goodbye to Olga, because I'm sure you got to get out of here, and I'm sure you got dinner to do and all sorts of things. But Olga Loudman, thank you so much again for another great Trump tyranny tracker. Anything you want to promote quickly on the Trump tyranny tracker, Unmasking Russia, in the next few days?
I will be dropping a new chapter for Russia and the global far right. And that's it.
Okay, well, everyone should check it out. Trump Tyranny Tracker and Unmasking Russia. It's Olga's 2 Substacks. Must follows, must subscribes, and must paid subscribe. Please go ahead and do that. And thanks, Olga. We'll see you on Thursday.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Okay, Ellie, while I got you here, I'm going to ask you a couple more questions. You know, I mean, The Greatest Heist, Chapter 4, I wrote this weekend, and I released it, and it was all about Marie Villafana, who's the prosecutor who originally got the FBI case and started investigating Epstein, and the onslaught she got from Ken Starr, of all people, you know. And I saw that when that name showed up in my radar, I was just blown away that she's on there. Because, I mean, this guy is Clinton's biggest slayer, the guy who went after Bill Clinton, with the whole Monica Lewinsky investigation, 455 pages of stuff that he came out with. And yet Epstein was Clinton's friend, supposed friend. And all of this was happening at exactly the same time. And then, of course, you know, there's a thing that was always stuck in my head is that a portrait of Clinton in the dress in Epstein's home. And then Ken Starr shows up. I'm like, well, this is weird. But really, it's not that weird because it's a network. And I'm sure your names on that list are the foundations of this network, because what you probably are beginning to put together there are all the connective tissue between, the Donald Trumps, the Jeffrey Epsteins, the Dershowitzes, the Ken Starrs, the Wexners. All of this is the network that they're all protecting. At the same time, it explains how you can be both a friend of Jeffrey Epstein's and an accuser of Bill Clinton's.
Yes. Well, I've been thinking a lot about this. I'm not much of an artist, but I thought it would be really interesting for somebody to come up with like an Epstein family tree, you know, as it were, but more like the modeling, the finance, the politics, and just start to see how these branches kind of weave together. Because I don't really know. You kind of have to be an expert on one piece of it, because it's really hard to be an expert on everything, because it is such a vast and complicated story, and it covers so much, so many different realms. But as far as Clinton is concerned, I don't know that anybody in Jeffrey Epstein's world was a true friend of anybody. I just feel like this, it was a lot of one-upping, and right, it's a lot of one-upping. It's a lot of, you know, what can this person do for me? But I think Clinton, as far as having read these emails, again, I'm not getting that Clinton is doing a lot of improper things. He's around a lot of people who, you know, he may have known something. He seems to be Epstein's alibi, because whenever Epstein tries to get out of an accusation, so some of the emails occur through the time when Virginia Giuffre was accusing him, when the Katie Johnson stuff came out, he always uses Bill Clinton as, well, that's fake because Bill Clinton was never at the island and I can prove it. And here's he always uses Clinton as an alibi, which I find very interesting, because I don't think they were that close. I think Clinton was really good friends with Ghislaine Maxwell.
Yeah. I mean, he was at the White House 17 times. I'm not sure they weren't close, but, I haven't been to the White House 17 times.
He was a collector. He was a collector of people. And I think he just liked to be in proximity to greatness so that he could say that he was friends or knew people. But I don't know.
You're so nice to say that he's collecting people. I mean, what I see is someone who is potentially involved in a network that framed Bill Clinton with Monica Lewinsky. They didn't frame them because the events obviously happened, but they set it up so that it would happen. And it's interesting that Epstein was in that circle just before that. So, Epstein becomes his friends. He introduces him into this whole world of models and you name what. And then lo and behold, there's an intern that is involved in some scandal with Bill Clinton. And there's this blue dress that magically appears and Ken Starr marching out of the darkness as in these Darth Vader outfits as the great Clinton slayer. I mean, it all seems pretty contrived looking at it in hindsight to me.
Right. And a lot of hypocrisy.
Yeah, a lot of hypocrisy. And then there's these modeling agencies. You've got these MC2 model management, right? Which is E equals MC2 is Epstein equals MC2. So this was Brunel's modeling agency, but really it was Jeffrey Epstein's modeling agency. It was financed by J.P. Morgan. We have all the funds flowing. We know where they came from. The fact that they gave a loan to this model management company, which landed up then being the pipeline for a lot of these people that Olga was just mentioning. Like the person that Olga was mentioned was hired by one of these modeling agencies. To, the visa was set up through Israel and so it was cleared. And then off they could go into the United States as models where they could act as spies inside all these industries. So, you've got this sort of, they're laundering people through to the New York office, the Miami office right near Epstein's Palm Beach mansion. And then the Tel Aviv office was used for visa cover. Basically, they were giving people visas in a way to get out of there.
I think there was a triangle because I think, when you read through, and you've read through a lot of it, but like when you read through the JP Morgan stuff, they talk a lot about how Epstein would go in and he would create accounts for women without the women being there, without their birth dates being on the accounts, which, you or I could not open a bank account without going to the bank and giving them our social security number, our birthday. Like we couldn't do that, but he was somehow opening accounts for women not in the room without their birthdays on them. So you had that. And then you had the modeling agencies, which the women were being filtered into. But you also had the Einstein visa program, which is the O visa program. All these women, I'm starting to see that, like, just like Melania, all these women were coming across with the same visa that's supposed to be for people who have made significant strides in society. And all they had to have was a significant person signing off for them. And I feel like that is something that those three things together needs to be heavily investigated because they all worked in tandem.
100%. This was a way to get Russian spies into the United States and Israeli spies and other spies into the United States that they could use to get into some of these sectors like the Silicon Valley sector or the AI sector or in whatever cases, And so not only were they human trafficking, because that's illegal, of course. They were using these modeling agencies for two things. They were partly using it for compromise. They were getting these underage models that they could use to then blackmail these political leaders in America. And then on the other hand, they were shipping all these Eastern Europeans in, like Melania and others, to be spies in America. Bridget Carr said, and this is about J.P. Morgan, so it's a bit of an aside here in terms of what we're talking about right now, but she's an expert in human trafficking. This is in the trial of J.P. Morgan. She says, in my opinion, Epstein's relationship with MC2 Models Management and its owner, Jean-Luc Brunel, was a red flag for human trafficking. And she explains why in those 5 points below. But, who does these large cash withdrawals of up to $300,000 that go nowhere?
Always the same amount, always to the penny.
Yeah, round dollar wires to women. I mean, it's just so obvious, right? It was ridiculous.
We had so many, even whether it was, so this was the expert. This was like the person investigating after the fact. But even the emails of the people themselves working for JP Morgan were saying at some point they were inching into the same same conversation of, I see a red flag. This feels a little trafficky. Maybe we shouldn't do this. And then it was ultimately like the kibosh was put on it. Yeah, but he's one of our top 3 guys. We need to keep him on, blah, blah, blah. So like they were saying the same thing that this woman is saying, but they just didn't stop because he was making them so much money and there was so much more involved. Like it's almost like they couldn't stop if they wanted to, even if it was the right thing, because they weren't really in charge of what was happening. There was somebody above them and somebody above that person. And, you know.
Well, it's much more than that as well. There is something really interesting that's coming up in The Greatest Heist. You know, we're just building up to it. We're only on chapter 4 now, but there is a major crime that happens that crashes the market in 2008, and it involves this entire network who are all there to profit off American misery, or there to profit off the fact that people are losing their homes and there's pensions and you name it. There's 10 million jobs were erased in America. These guys all ran away with all the goodies. They ran away with trillions of dollars. And it's not the first time they've done it. They've done it repeatedly over and over and over and over again. Just, really, conning America into believing that they were, otherwise not involved in at least conning America is what I should say, in terms of stealing this money and creating all these fake events. And then you've got these women like this Svetlana Pozhidaiva, who's, back to the idea of what Olga was talking about, where you've got these Russian intelligence academy graduates who become MC2 models, and then she became Epstein's assistant in the United States. So you can see how this improbable thing happened, that suddenly Svetlana gets her O visa, gets allowed into the United States because she's now a genius, because she's a model.
Yeah, right.
This is a graduate from a Russian intelligence academy.
Right.
And
somebody worked for the visa program. I can't remember. It was a woman who worked for the visa program, and she said you really don't have to have done anything to get an Einstein visa.
I got an Einstein visa, so don't say you don't have to do anything. It took me a little time, but I got mine.
Right. But she said that you have to have somebody of significance signing off for you. That can often mean more than your actual background, is if you have someone high and mighty signing off.
There's a lot of people that have to sign off. It's actually fairly complex, and I hope they don't get rid of it because of this, because it actually is a fairly complex thing. But I mean, clearly the Russian intelligence academy is a red flag. But it's you do need someone reasonably high up to vouch for your credibility. It's a good way to get people in who are credible around the United States. But obviously Epstein is not that, and Epstein's model agency was not that, and he's bringing in these women to act as spies, which is just so telling. And of course, this is Yuri Shvet saying, how could someone as smart and educated as Pozhidaiva become a women's rights activist while possibly seeking the support of Jean-Luc Bernal and Jeffrey Epstein, who led and participated in human trafficking? Well, the answer is that she was an agent. She was really just an agent infiltrating that whole network. You've got some your thoughts about any of this? Yeah.
I was going to say, I think I could be wrong about this, but I feel like the company, the women's right activists, like their physical address, I believe, was the apartment building on 66. I could be wrong about that, but a lot of these, fronts had an address at the 66th apartment. So,
right. These 66 apartments are so interesting. Maria Farmer was telling us the other day that, that's where a lot of stuff went happen. There's a lot of businesses are registered there. Multiple businesses are registered at 65. 66th Street. Was it 66th Street?
Yeah, 66. So, yeah.
But a lot of bad things happened there. That's when Maria Farmer says that Annie Farmer was first assaulted, or molested at least, by Jeffrey Epstein in the cinema that they had there in that building.
Yeah, well, you think about it, they had 220 individual apartments in there, and it's owned by Mark Epstein. He swears he doesn't know anything that went on in the walls of that building.
Of course, you know nothing. Just 220 women living in your apartment building that are models, but you know nothing. Ehud Barak showing up, going up on repeated occasions, and you know nothing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Housing diplomats, yeah. And he's also somebody who made all of a sudden money, out of nothing. There's questions there. We also have some emails from him as well. But yeah, so you have these. You have all these people. I mean, he was bringing across people with Einstein visas who there was, and I forget, was it Natalia Marcinkova, who was 15 years old? He brought her across on an Einstein visa, got her an apartment at the 66. I wrote an article about it way back when, but it is a very mysterious building, and no cameras, nothing. And it was owned by Leslie Wexner. It's another dollar building that was sold to the Epstein brothers.
The dollar buildings are so interesting, right? They are really telling about who Wexner is, because you're learning so much in these through the addresses that he owns. All these buildings: Palm Beach, the mansion on 71st Street, the apartments on 66th Street, all given to them for $1 for just because. Because. I mean, why would you do that?
He just wanted to move to Ohio. He just didn't like those places anymore, so he just gave them for $1.
I mean, it made those places. I sure have questions about whether he is, was operating this entire network at the same time. I mean, that's certainly the thing which brought Villafana's quest for a indictment to an end. When he got the plea bargain, she knew that when she placed the phone call to Wexner to say, I would like details about Epstein's involvement with you because we're investigating money laundering, she knew it would shut things down pretty quickly and that Epstein would have to do the plea bargain. But it was her final card. She had nothing else to play, and she played it, which is good for her. I mean, I think it's a pretty big deal that she did something like that. But, that's why we have the plea bargain. That's why we have anything, because Ken Starr would have killed the entire case. Yeah. Could he have done it? You have so much interesting stuff. And by the way, if anyone has any questions around Greatest Heist or to Ellie about her incredible work that she's been doing on her Substack about all these emails, please write them in the chats right now. It's your chance to ask us any questions. And you got to run. I know you got to run. So I'm just going to quickly. This email you shared with everybody is from Michael Wolf. Well, what's this? Tell us about this one. Was this from you? This was from you.
I know that everybody's a little bit of a sleazebag in these emails, but they started talking about Woody Allen, and I know the Woody Allen story very personally because I worked on the Woody Allen, the Allen v. Farrow documentary for over a year, and I got to know the people involved and the story behind it, and the evidence and all the off the record psych files and police files, and I know that Woody Allen did what Woody Allen did. It was very clear and very obvious. But you have these people who are all really close with him, and Epstein is very close with Woody Allen. Woody Allen is in a lot of emails. He's in a lot of places. He's at dinner all the time. Soon Yi, his wife, is emailing Epstein. They're very, very close. And so Epstein he's just really going after Mia Farrow and Ronan Farrow and Dylan Farrow and all the people who are involved in the accusation.
When you say going after, what do you mean?
Just not physically, he's just ranting.
Right.
And that really got me boiling because I just thought, this is just one more guy who doesn't need to have an opinion about this because Woody Allen did what he did. He's a sleazebag. He's a pedophile himself. Yeah. This is not negotiable. And so they're just kind of talking back and forth. And they were talking about how, all the people who've been taken down by the Me Too movement, and they're like, oh, he got this one, and then he goes, and still my favorite, Arthur Sulzberger. Well, guess who that is? He owns the New York Times. And then he said, you and I are old news. Jeffrey Epstein says that. So maybe we got missed, and Michael Wolff says, well, let's cross your fingers, and it's just so telling because it's it is amazing that Jeffrey Epstein was missed in that. But I think money probably speaks in that conversation. But also there's
which conversations is this? The other email, right? That's not this email. Is this email?
This is a little bit. He's talking at the top. He's talking about the Paris. I love when he goes, my buddy from the Paris Review. The Paris Review, for God's sake, is being taken down by who cares?
But this 80-year-old father of my friend Rachel Horowitz, the playwright. Okay. Yeah. So that's really interesting. Name dropping like crazy, eh?
Yeah, really just downplaying all these people who've been canceled by the Me Too movement and how much of a burden it is on these, wealthy white men. And I just found it just kind of, you got to go take a cold shower after you read these emails because it's not building Michael Wolff's credibility by any means now that we have these. And I've just not that he's condemning himself in any way, not that he's committing crimes. It just really tells you a lot about who someone is on a deeper level when you read their personal emails.
Yeah.
And it's not his shining moment.
No, it isn't. I mean, as much as I've tried to understand where he's coming from as a journalist and as an investigator, he went way over the top on so many of these things, and
Yeah.
you just there's a point where you're like, well, your morality and your ethics need to stop you from doing these things. You can't just keep pushing, in order to get the story. It is very, as someone's saying in the chat here, sleazy. It really is. The other email that I can't share with everybody because I don't have the graphic made up for it, but just in general, you're uncovering so much because you're reading all these emails in great detail on your great Substack. I'm never going to get this right. The Panicked Unpaid Writer, right? I don't know.
Thank you.
It's great. Ellie Leonard is her name.
I got to rebrand.
No, it's great. It's just my brain at this time of the night. It's hard for me to remember all these things. Tell me about you've been looking at all these emails, and tonight you're going to be dropping some new ones. So you guys, Ehud Barak coming up. I mean, I have so many emails from Ehud Barak on my computer here because there is so, not to me, but from the Epstein files, that they're just clogging up everything. There's a lot to go through. Is there anything you're picking up that's really interesting?
Well, Ehud Barak is just the level of closeness, I would say. It's not, again, it's a lot of it is just sort of seeing the deeper relationships between people and the way that they talk. And he's just talking about, like, are you going to be at the island? Okay, I'll be at the island. I might hang out this weekend. Oh, you want to hang out this weekend? Like, it's clear that they were not on a business relationship. And it sort of speaks back to, like, tomorrow Ehud Barak is speaking at the New York Times Deal Book Summit in New York City. They have paid him to come be a speaker. He's being hosted by Nicholas Kristof, who I really like. Nick Kristof. I wish he was not the moderator for that. I hope he asks hard questions, but
he has to ask hard questions. I really hope they do. I really hope they ask the tough questions of Ehud Barak because he needs to answer them. He's got lots to answer for.
He has a lot to answer for. He is the well-known prime minister from Virginia Giuffre's book, who was one of her brutal rapists, who broke her ribs and made it hard for her to breathe and hard for her to swallow because he choked her and she was unconscious. And, all these things are credible. And the reason we know that for sure, like I know that for sure from sources, but the reason that the public at large knows that for sure is because when Alan Dershowitz countersued Virginia Giuffre, he unsealed the documents that declared that that's who that was. And so the New York Times has all this information, and now they're bringing him in for thousands of dollars to come speak at their summit tomorrow. So we have all these emails from people like him, from Jean-Luc Brunel, from I released all the Bannon emails. Those are very expensive.
Just on Barak before we let him go, go to that topic. Is this thing going to be streamed tomorrow? Do you know if it's happening live or is it only for attendees?
It is streamed, but he's not on the main stage. So the main stage will be streamed, and that will have like, I can't even remember who's going to be there, but like they have the guy, the co-founder of Palantir is going to be speaking. I think a bunch of senators. I mean, it's like the mucky muck of the mucky muck. It's a lot of wealthy people speaking to a lot of wealthy people, but they have sort of side rooms and side panels that I don't know if those are going to be live streamed. I normally am transcribing these. I have not done them. So I think
I wonder why you're not transcribing them this year, Ellie. But it's
a small article in Politico.
Yeah, just a little something made of upset them. Did it come out, the article in Politico? Did I miss it?
Yeah, it's so small. It's in Politico. It was in their newsletter. It's Daniel Lippman wrote it in there. He's very kind, and I told him, I was like, "Oh, this is the biggest thing." He goes, "It's not that big. Don't worry about it." But it's in there, and they called the Times for questioning, so they know it's in there. But yeah.
Well, at least they got called out by some, more. I don't want to call them legitimate because they're not legitimate. No one's legitimate in the legitimate world, but some bigger brands out there. Which I'm so glad you were able to get that into the Politico newsletter. That's fantastic. So. I know you're going to mention some other names like Steve Bannon and everybody else, but let me just quickly ask some questions here because what's it say here?
Yeah, Erica Kirk is going to be there tomorrow. That's another one.
I'm really interested in the Barak one. I hope I can get a transcript of that or at least an audio of that. That would be interesting. Listening to Wolf's interview, he's adamant that his techniques is the way to get the target to open up. He did nothing wrong. Man, he is on fire about it. Reaction. We spoke about that a little bit. I mean, you obviously feel that he crossed the line.
I do. And I think I think there's a lot of pride. He's a prideful man. I've followed Michael Wolff for a long time. I've really enjoyed his writing. I've looked up to him as a journalist, but I also have to be very objective and call a spade a spade. And one of the greatest interviews that I saw was Don Lemon interviewed him and just laid it all out. And Don Lemon can be a little arrogant. He can be a little brash, but he really got under Michael Wolff's skin. It's the first time I've seen Michael Wolff get emotional and respond emotionally to it. And he got very angry.
Yeah.
And he's just like a cat in the bathwater. Like he is not going to regret anything that he's done. He stands by everything that he's done, but he also doesn't answer the questions when they're, when somebody asks, well, then why not release these audio files now? He doesn't answer the question. He sort of walks around it and talks about how, well, nobody ever wanted them because I offered. And we all know that means he didn't get, a book deal, but we're not asking for a book deal. We're asking for a Google Drive. If the House Oversight Committee can put all these files on a Google Drive, then so can Michael Wolff.
Yeah.
And he's not willing to do that.
I'm really surprised by that because he's not getting a book deal. He says no one will buy the book deal. So why not? I just saw a name flash by here, which I was so interested in. So there's a name. I'm not sure if Robin is on the chat here. That looks like a name I recognize. So I don't know if you're related to somebody I would know, but if you are, give me a DM. I'm really interested in finding out if you know the person I am would be interested in talking to. The other people that are asking here are asking about whether we would consider all sorts of. The Greatest Heist is just a story. It's one story of many stories. There is so much that is going to come out from The Greatest Heist, but there is so many more stories that are going to be told about Jeffrey Epstein. Some people are asking about the 9/11 thing I mentioned earlier on 5stack. There is absolutely a connection between this network and 9/11, and that is actually what's meant to be book 2 in the Greatest Heist. This was actually meant to be book 3, but I got so excited about it, I just put it up first. But there is a middle chapter there of all sorts of other things that this network did that are appalling, and just appalling.
And who I'm seeing pop up a lot is that Mohammed bin Salman. He is popping up all over the place, and it's prior to the murder of Jamal Khashoggi, the journalist. But he was hanging out with Epstein. He was hanging out with Trump. He was hanging out with everybody.
Oh, I'd be really interested in hearing those. Didn't he send Trump a tent? Epstein a tent or something in one of those emails?
Something like that. Yeah, there's some weird emails where they're just talking about like cholesterol medicine. Like there's just this odd interaction.
If you can share those MBS ones, those are really interesting to me because I think that they're, MBS is another one of he's a member of this network. There's no other way to look at it. If you look at the way Jeffrey Epstein speaks about him, the way they coordinate, and that explains the Saudi influence around 9/11 as well. It explains why they were involved in that as well, along with the Russian mob. All the same characters, everybody. It's just always the same people. That's it for the show because I know it's 8:08. Kept you up late. I'm sorry, Ellie. I adore your work. I adore you, and everyone should check out the Unpaid Panicked Writer. Something like that. Ellie Leonard. And I don't have a name super up for you, but it's ELLIE Leonard as you would spell it.
Yes, and go read The Heist because it's like the part of my brain that I don't have. It's that missing piece because you have all the money and all the JP Morgan stuff and all that stuff is so crystal clear and so researched, and that's not my strength. And so I'm like, okay, I'm gonna work over here, and then I'm just gonna read that, and then I can put those pieces together, and it all makes sense.
I dip into yours all the time because I'm always so interested in what you find because you're actually reading the stuff. I have set up this really elaborate AI system which I could not write this book without it because it cross-checks every little fact that I put out because I can't just make this shit up. I mean, as much as I'd like to, you can't leave any of these facts unconfirmed. So every single fact on every page is fact-checked by this AI, which is it's just such a great thing. But, I would love to, and by the way, some of your notes that you've shared with me are in that AI, so I get to use it for some of that fact checking as well. So I appreciate you're liking the series, and it gets so good. It's a sleeper, this one, because we're only at the investigation phase, but there's something big that creeps up on us later on. But I'm going to write a lot about. I think I'm going to move up a chapter and write about the modeling agencies earlier, because they seem to be they really are what they are. And no one's ever said that. No one's actually come out and said these modeling agencies were a human trafficking and espionage network. And it goes from the Casablanca agency to the Epstein agency to Trump's agency.
Right.
I mean, they were all involved in this modeling world, not just so they could have sex with these models. They were trafficking them. They were using them for espionage. They're doing all sorts of things with them.
Right.
And that's one of the things I'm going to try and pack for everybody on the next chapter. And everyone should read your stuff tonight because it's going to be really good about Barack.
I'm getting off here and I'm going to go start dropping emails. So if you guys want to know what Michael Wolff was saying, who Barack was saying, Alan Dershowitz, Ghislaine Maxwell, I'm going to just start dropping emails. I'm not even done, but I just have enough that I think I need to start dropping them, and then we'll
it's
add.
Going to never end, Elliot.
I'm hoping, my fingers are crossed, this next drop will be as much letters and emails and whatever we can do that's earlier, right? I know at some point it's going to drop off because we didn't really have email, but I want some early 2000s to just dig into, because this all starts sort of like 2010 and then it moves
there's
upward.
definitely stuff as early as 2003 in the police evidence that will be dropping as early as on the 19th. I think we could be seeing it before Christmas. We could be seeing a huge dump. Which is not great for our Christmas holidays, but it's, I think there'll be a lot in there once it's been released. I think Judge Berman is actively involved in making sure that it's the right stuff that's being released. So that's also compelling that's he's involved himself in the release of these.
Yeah.
Good. So that's it. Thank you, Ellie. Thanks for your time. I always love talking to you. Thanks for being here on the Substack, and thanks to Olga Lautman. Two of my favorite people on Substack. So it's great to have me here. I'll be back tomorrow at 3 p.m. with the 5 Stack with Dean Blundell. We'll see you then. Thanks for being here, everybody. And we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.